What's up, everyone? This is Anthwon Thomas with another podcast episode of High Value Agent, where we inspire people to create a better life through real estate. And joining me today is Amanda Dalessandro. She's our Director of Operations here at Silverline Real Estate Group. And I'm excited today because we're going to be diving deep into her story and the lessons that she's learned, the power of having an operations team, and the key things to look for when you're building out your operations team. Okay. Because a lot of people, if you're looking to build something great, okay, you cannot do it alone. You have to have a strong support team and operations team that is helping implement and build everything out for you. So Amanda is a perfect example of that. So we're going to really break down her story. So Amanda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Good morning. The sun isn't even up yet, so we only have the light of our computer screens.
Yes,
But yeah, doing well. Excited to be here.
absolutely. To just kind of give some context here. So myself and Amanda, we were going to shoot this during the actual work day. Your typical morning time, 10 a.m. or maybe a afternoon podcast. It's 7 a.m.
hmm
and we up in here getting it cracking, right? The sun's not even out. So this is how committed we are to make sure we can help inspire and help people grow businesses, that are worth having. So Amanda, what I want to do to really start this off the right way is I want you to share your story. What is your background? We could talk about family, your upbringing, early life education, and then we're going to just unpack the years we've been working together, where you started when you were working with me, and even the Amanda back then and the Anthwon back then. Who were they
hmm
to
Yeah.
who we are today? So I'm gonna throw it to you,
hmm
Amanda. Kind of give us a breakdown on your background.
Okay. Let's see. I'm the oldest of three siblings. It was mainly just me and my sister most of our lives. Our brother was a surprise. My parents had him when I was already in middle school, so already like growing up and doing that stuff. But went to school all throughout school, kindergarten through 12th grade. I always thought I wanted to be a teacher. But during that time, right when it was about time to go off to college, there were a ton of laws changing here in Indiana. And every teacher that I knew and looked up to, they were like, you do not want to be a teacher, because it was a time where a lot of the new teachers were just getting fired and let go randomly. So it just wasn't a stable job. So I also had a very big interest in business. Particularly accounting. So when I first went off to school, I started out as an accountant. I was very good at it. I enjoyed it. And then during some of my school breaks, summer times, and also just like winter breaks, things like that, I have an aunt who's actually in real estate.
Mhm.
And so she's out of brokerage here in town, actually. And over my break, she would say, hey, why don't you come help out some of the agents here? So I would help out some of the agents, and I was always just, I found it funny how some of them did business, because I mean, a lot of them at the brokerage were pretty old school. The
Mhm.
one that I worked with, his database was like two massive filing cabinets of printed out names. Um, all power to him, because he would prospect through that database every single week. He would be like, give me the A through the B's, and so I would put it on his desk, and he would stand there and call through. But I just kept saying, there's a better way to do this. So as I got further into school, into accounting, I wasn't as happy with it, because I was like, I don't want to do the same thing every single day. And that's what a lot of that was. And so switched over to mainly just business management focus. And soon after school, I was interviewing at a few different places. Interviewed with a local lender in town to be a potential loan processor, things like that. And that lender actually put me in contact with Anthwon, because Anthwon had just been talking to that lender because they are partners. And Anthwon was saying, I think I need somebody. And so they actually pointed me in that direction.
Okay.
Um, Started out as just a transaction coordinator. But I have to talk about the interview first. So the interview with Anthwon first. um, so that interview, I maybe said two sentences the whole interview, because it was just Anthwon spewing out his vision for what he had in mind for Silver Lining. And I was just sitting there thinking, well, I don't know How this is going to work, I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is I am bought into whatever he is talking about, and I want to help him figure out how to get there. And so he hired me on the spot after saying two sentences, maybe. So big risk there, but it ended up working out. Um, so we went from just him and I in a very small office to hiring more people, moving into an even smaller office at a different brokerage. um, and then just continuing to grow from there, bringing in some amazing people, lots of changes along the way, lots of
Mhm.
shifts. The business looks so much different every single year, just changing. Adapting to the vision for it. There's been times where,
Yeah.
you know, maybe we've sold ourselves short a little bit for a year or so. And then we're like, no, we can actually make this a great thing. So it's
Yeah,
been
for
cool to
sure.
see along the way.
That is, that's awesome. You sharing that. I was aware that you were initially going to school to be a teacher. I remember you
Mhm,
telling me that a while back. And then you transitioned into accounting and then into
mhm,
business. I was aware that you were working with during the summertime or wintertime, you'd help a local agent, get their, stuff organized and help support them, and that they were a prospector. And I'm
mhm,
sitting there like, man, that's crazy. There's another agent in town that prospects. That's pretty dope.
mhm.
Um, but I do want to actually unpack a little more of that interview because, ladies and gentlemen, I got freaking lucky.
Mhm.
Like, because I do not recommend you do your interviews the way I did it. Okay. But I do want to talk about that because I believe that um, you know, things are just destined to be what they are, right? And during that
Mhm.
time, I was in real estate, I think maybe about 2 years at that point, and I was learning the ropes. I mean, I was learning how to be a transaction coordinator. I was learning how to be a prospector. I was learning how to be a strong negotiator. I was learning how to manage a business, right? I was doing everything. And I finally got to the point because I had a group of people, a group of individuals who were ahead of me, who thought at a higher level than I did. And I remember them telling me we were in San Diego at a mastermind. Shout out to my boys, Colton Lindsay and Brian Casella. There were AJ Maida as well, all three big names in our industry. And I remember just sitting on the balcony. We were in a mansion, like it was so fly. Like we were in a mansion overlooking the mountains, and we were just talking about business. And I remember Colton looking at me and he's like, "Bro, you're a hustler, man. Like, I got to give it to you, dude. Like you got it, man. It's time for you to find someone to help you. You need help." And being someone who I consider myself coachable, I said, "Okay." So went back to Lafayette, literally started trying to find somebody to help me. Um, she was referring to there's a local lender in town who was like, you know what? If you're looking for an admin or a TC, I may got somebody for you. And I was interviewing, I think, three people, and Amanda was the first person. And like she said, we sat down in this big conference room, and it's just me and her. And I'm just like telling her everything about what the next 5 years are going to look like, the next 10 years. And literally, I don't think she said more than 3 words. And one of the words was, "Hi, I'm Amanda." So like literally one of her sentences was like introducing herself to me. I don't think she said anything else. It was just like, "Oh, okay, okay." Um, and what's crazy is Amanda not having the experience that another candidate that I was going to interview had. I still went with Amanda because she was a good listener, right? She was the first person I met with. The second person I was supposed to meet with has been doing the TC stuff for years, had the experience. But I went with Amanda because I just felt like, this person believes. For my future implementers or integrators or director of operations or head of operations, whatever you want to call them, right? COO, if you really want to show the visionary that you're about it, be a good listener and buy in. Show them that you are there to buy in. Even if you don't truly like, I don't know, visionary, that sounds a little crazy, but I trust you or I believe that it can be done. It's just going to be very hard. Just show and listen because that will make a visionary feel so good that you are somebody who is a good listener and you believe because us as visionaries, we don't have a lot of people that believe. Maybe outside of we got our own belief, right? And then we have our family. But outside of that, not many people truly believe in the vision that we're trying to bring to fruition. And Amanda got chose because I felt like she believed. And all she had to do was just listen. So I wanted to unpack that a little more because there were other qualified candidates that I didn't even meet with, right? I just say, you know what, Amanda, let's make this happen. So, cool. Let's hop into let's talk about because again, Amanda is the director of operations. She started as an admin and transaction coordinator. Okay, so let's unpack that journey. Like, what was day
Mhm.
one like? What was day one like?
Yeah. I had like a little bit of experience as to, how a transaction progressed throughout everything, from, getting the contract paperwork signed to the closing table. But I mean, it was essentially just, okay, here are some of the key points. We got to figure out systems for it. So, I mean, even back then, I was kind of an operations person because I had to find systems that we could use. To build things out and tr- keep track of all the transaction stuff, especially as we
Mhm.
were starting to grow. So I had to figure out all of that, build it out. So I was kind of wearing many, many different hats all at the same time. Also, just kind of being introduced to, you had a lot of great coaches and mentors. And so listening in on some of their podcast or some of the webinars that they would do to learn what those teams were doing to market and different things like that, teaching myself like all those different things, Facebook ads, how to use some of our different systems at a high level. So kind of doing all of that in one, really from the beginning. So as we were able to bring on help, it was like, okay, cool, I can breathe for a second until we add in something else.
Yes, yes. I remember the little rinky dink systems that I was using at the time and trying my best to figure all that stuff out. And then Amanda comes in and I'm like, all right, so here's what I use. And, from here,
Mhm.
let's try to make this work. And like year one was crazy because we have some changes. We changed brokerages and stuff like that. And then year two, year three, we started getting some more higher level people in our lives and coaching us and giving us support. But man, it was a struggle because I remember even a year where I, when you're trying to bring people onto the team outside of like your support team, right? Your operations team, when you're bringing agents onto the team, then you got to build out training systems too. And so me, I was a rainmaker. I was trying to close deals, but now we got agents on the team. We started out with buyer agents. Like, man, they needed training, So
Mhm.
we had to build out that entire system. And that looks completely different now than it did back then. So like so many things have
Mhm.
evolved. And Amanda's been a huge reason for that because it allowed me to focus on what I needed to focus on. And Amanda has been able to really help integrate everything. Um, so let's talk about what does an operations team actually do, right? So we could talk about the operations team altogether, and then like what do you focus on in that process as well?
Yeah. For sure. I mean, I would say operations teams, like the structure of them looks different in a lot of different organizations. I've taken a
Hmm.
peek at many different organizations, like organizational charts, and how they structure it out is a lot different. But they all kind of do similar things. Really, you want the operations team um, to just focus on filling in the gaps, finding the holes, finding ways to make things more efficient and effective for everybody, for the marketing team, for the agents, for the transaction coordinators. I mean, some of those positions can tend to fall into the overarching umbrella of the operations team, but
Mhm.
to have everybody be able to talk to each other, flow seamlessly. And again, just finding ways to be more efficient and effective. That's what everybody always wants. And so that's why there's been so many different reiterations of our business, because we found different ways to make things more efficient, whether it's changing systems or optimizing systems. That's really what you want help with, because um, you could stick with rinky-dink systems, but it's not scalable. You want things to be scalable. Things are going to break all the time, especially as you're adding in new positions and more agents, multiplying agents. Um, Things are going to break. So you want people there to be able to help solve for that and make things more efficient.
So good, so good. Us unpack, because what I want to make sure we do is the people that watch this, they have a clear idea, sure, what an operations team does, but
Hmm.
if there's a visionary
Yeah.
watching this and they're in the beginning stages, or maybe they've already had, a support team, but they're trying to find that person that they can trust to
Hmm.
be the integrator, right? Or the be the head of operations. What would you tell that visionary as far as these are the attributes or the habits or behaviors that you should be looking for in a high level director of operations? And the reason why I want you to say it is because I do consider you a high level director of operations. Like, you've grown into that and you continue to grow and be even better, which is what I appreciate,
Hmm.
because none of us like being around people who lack the growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
And but if a visionary is listening to this, what would you tell them when it comes to finding a great high level director of operations, or someone who has the potential to be one? What would you tell them?
Um, you definitely want them to be resourceful. You don't want a director of operations that's coming to you for everything, asking questions on how things are done. You want them to be resourceful. Um, and a huge thing is you want them to be bought in. You want them to have that ownership of the
Mm,
organization. That's a huge thing, because then a lot of the other key attributes will really fall into place. Like if we have times where we're not hitting our goals, or maybe an agent is not succeeding how we might have thought that they would for that year. Like I always look at myself first on like how could we have set them up better? What could I have done? Different marketing tactics we could have implemented, things like that. You want people who are going to look at themselves first and not point the finger to other people, have that ownership of things, because um, they're going to work for it. They're going to want to grow,
mhm.
because the people, agents and the company will only grow as much as we're growing. So we have to
So
continue to
good.
grow for all of that stuff. So you want them to be resourceful, adaptable, because most likely your business is going to look different a month from now than it does today.
Yep.
Hopefully, if we're continuing to do our job, we're continuing to get better.
Mhm.
Coachable. You don't just want you want somebody who's a good listener, who completely understands your point of view and where you're coming from, but you also don't just want a yes man. You want somebody who um, will challenge that view. And sometimes visionaries have to be brought down to earth a little bit on, okay, this is what's realistic right now. We can think about that. We'll put a pin in it and do that later, maybe. But yeah, you don't just want a yes man either.
It's so good. Yeah. That include like patience. She said that without
Yeah.
saying, being like having some patience too, because I can't speak for all visionaries. So like I could just speak on me. I am very fast paced and go, 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 and bringing ideas to the table. And I'm also very uh I I hate to say it. I'm a perfectionist, but I'm learning to not be so hard on if it's not perfect. Like I'm because I'm trying to be more empathetic to the people around me and say like I don't want to run people into the ground, but really having a director of operations, or somebody who is working beside you, who understands you, who's patient, who is not I like that you said you don't want a yes man or a yes woman. You want someone who's going to have their own way of thinking, and to challenge, not saying that they disagree with you, but they're challenging you. So then you as a visionary, you're very clear on what it is you're trying to achieve, right? Because sometimes as a visionary, it just sounds cool to talk about an idea, but have somebody say, well, tell me more about that. How is that going to help us now? How is that going to help us in the future? How do we get there, right? Have you thought about some of that stuff? Because a lot of the stuff that I know I have thought of in the past, where I was like, this is a good idea. I look back and I'm like, that was a terrible fucking idea. I'm glad we didn't do that shit, you know? Oh, there we go. So let's talk about the what does our team look like now? Because obviously, you know, we were just at one point, me and you know, we were just in
Mhm.
this little small office, you know, working. Um, so what does the team look like now, and how do you what does your like typical day look like?
Yeah. Our team now, we have 14 agents, continuing to bring on more amazing agents. We have a transaction coordinator, a marketing coordinator, and a database manager. So my typical day, obviously as operations director, we I have a lot of different projects, so I really try to schedule out time to work on those different projects, different things that we're implementing for that quarter or that month, things like that. But I do database auditing. I act as well as a marketing director, so checking in on that stuff, running ads, doing tweaks that need to be done there, and then working on the projects essentially. So doing the research for that stuff, implementing that stuff, and there's always a million small things that need to get done
Mhm.
as well. So trying to find time to work on those bigger projects in between all the other small stuff that pops up. Any sort of systems thing or any we've been rolling out a lot of new presentations for both buyers and listings. So getting all of that stuff up and running, editing all of that stuff, things like that.
That's good. That's good. So what would you say is your like superpower? Like what is the thing that makes you really stand out in your role that you believe is your superpower?
Um, I would say I'm definitely coachable. Like, yeah, if somebody, and I like to look up to people who are doing things at a big level that I want to be doing. So looking up to a lot of different operations director throughout the industry, even just high level visionaries throughout the industry, and just being able to take a peek there. So being coachable, but also just being adaptable. Like I said, the business has changed 1,000 times just in the past 7 years. So being able to be adaptable in those sense, and I think that comes to my sense of ownership that I have with what happens with the team. So being able to be adaptable in those situations. We've had many different iterations of our businesses, many times where we've gotten the rug pulled out from under us, and just being able to be like, okay, now I have this hat, let's do it.
For
And just
sure.
running from there. Yeah.
Let's unpack that last part you just said, because
Yeah.
let's talk about some of the failures that we've had um, that really helped us learn. Because what we believe in is you don't lose, you learn, right?
Hmm.
Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And I'm here to tell you, we've been through a lot of things building what we have now. We're just getting started, by the way. And
Hmm.
there was a lot of pain that we had to go through, right? There were um, people that we had, in our world, and thought we could trust them, and found out we couldn't trust them, right?
Hmm.
There were times where even me and Amanda maybe had some type of like disagreement, and we had to learn to be able to grow together, right? Because we're not going to agree on everything. And sometimes I can get emotional about something, sometimes she can't. We're human, right?
Hmm.
um Even personal things, like we got families,
Hmm.
so there's been a lot of shit we've been through that really helped us be stronger. But like, let's unpack some of the hard stuff and the failures that we've had and the pain that we've experienced together. Anything
Hmm.
stands out to you?
Um, I mean,
Without going, we
yeah,
ain't got to say
yeah.
names, all that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, like, it is always hard if we have to part ways with people, just
Mhm,
because maybe expectations weren't met, or maybe, trust was broken, whatever that may be. That's always a difficult situation, especially if it's somebody that, has been there for a while.
mhm,
But otherwise, I mean, we've had times where we've switched brokerages and lost the transaction coordinator and done all of that, like all at the same time. Those were difficult situations because, again, not only am I having to learn everything about this new um, brokerage that just opened in our state, and all of that, and figure out all of those systems, but also taking on the transaction coordinator role again as well when we were really humming at the time. So just some of that stuff is some of the things that we've definitely been through. I would say more recently, some of the things that I'm still learning as a director of operations would just be letting go of control of some of the company processes. Even as you're bringing in new positions, that's something that when we brought on our new transaction coordinator, I had been able to be behind the curtain of the transaction side, and I was like, "We need to have more control over this. We want the transaction coordinator doing everything." And what we found is over the past year or so, we've started to make agents build our agents to be very dependent, and that's not necessarily what we want. So that's been something that we've been working through, and getting through over the past couple of months is creating more interdependent agents that aren't just relying on the transaction coordinator or the operations team to do everything, because it was something where I wanted to really control the client experience and all of that stuff. And so that's kind of how I built out the transaction process to be, to where the agents gave a little bit more to the transaction coordinator than what they should have. So we're now working on getting that ownership role back out to the agents to build agents who are more interdependent, because yeah, that's something that we're learning and just continuing as we bring on some transaction help here soon, because she's reaching her capacity, learning in those sense where that line is essentially.
That's good. That's good. What would you say? Because again, I'm sure we'll have visionaries. I'm sure we'll have agents watch this. We'll have director of operations or um, admin or TCs that at some point want to grow into that position, right? Because it's something you got
Mhm.
to earn. Because a director of operations or a head of operations have a lot of power, right? Well, not all, because it really depends on the visionary and what they're willing
Yeah.
to give over. But let's help out the director of operations of future ones and the current ones. Like, what would you say makes a good visionary, right? Like, if you're a director of
Mhm.
operations or a future one,
Mhm.
what would you tell that director of operations? Hey, your visionary should be doing this, or should be this type of mindset, or this type of
Mhm.
person. Kind of give some feedback there.
Yeah, I would say you also want the visionary to be able to have patience, and understanding on when we can't implement something right away because it just doesn't make sense at that time. So you want them to be a good listener as well, and also respect what you are saying, respect your opinion, things like that. Some of that, it might be something that you have to earn a little bit over the course of time, over, making some good decisions for the company, showing up, showing that you are reliable and accountable and things like that. So you want them to be good listeners and have respect for your decisions as well. And also just people that want to see you grow. Because again, the company is only going to grow as big as the leaders. And so if the visionary isn't invested in your growth as well, then they're already putting a cap on the organization, essentially. So yeah, you want to see that as well.
That's good. I'm gonna do something. Thank you for that. I'm gonna do something that's never been done on a podcast before. I promise you, this has never been done on a real estate podcast that has a visionary and an integrator on the podcast. Okay, I'm gonna ask the integrator of Silverline Real Estate Group to give the visionary feedback, actual feedback on what the visionary can do to be a better visionary for the company and for the integrator. So I want you to give me actual feedback
You
and do
feedback.
not hold back. Yeah, this has never been done before.
Oh
Okay. And the one
my
thing about
gosh.
Amanda, she keeps it
Mhm.
real. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's another thing
Um,
too, before you get into it,
yeah.
I
Mhm.
want to preface with this. I hope that we demonstrate, or like in this part of the podcast, that if you want to grow, you have to embrace feedback. Okay. You have to embrace feedback. No matter how much it may hurt, you need to embrace it. And whether you decide to do something with it, that's your choice, right? You don't have to agree with all the feedback you receive. Okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes feedback is missing context. So the feedback doesn't really like, we understand all that. But you got to be open to it and embrace it if you ever want to grow. Okay. So lay it on me, Amanda. What would you say that Anthwon Thomas, the visionary, and I'm not even considering myself a great one, like I'm still learning to be even good. What can I do, or who do I need to become to get us to the next level of helping 1,000 families a year? What does that
Mhm.
Anthwon as a visionary look like?
I would say, let's see, um, focusing on the and I feel like we've talked about this before. I know we've talked about this before. Um, just really focusing on those core activities of, like, figuring out what the core activities are and really just building the day around them, and I feel like the core activities can change over time. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like right now it's really about building the agents that we have and obviously bringing in new amazing agents. So just finding ways to continue to build them. And I know we've talked recently about some changes to your schedule to be able to really pour into some of the agents that we have right now. And then while also, making sure that there's still time for recruiting and things like that. So some of it comes down to you also being able to let go a little bit more of some of the things in the business that just maybe are not worthy of your time right now, or just maybe the capacity isn't there at the moment. To really be able to focus in and hone in on those core activities. And again, there are times where um, who capacity is just a foreign term to us because it's like, okay, yeah, so what? I have 1,000 hats right now. That's just what it is. So some of it comes down to needing more help in order to be able to let go of some of those things. But I would say like the daily schedule, at least like the Monday through Friday. And I know we've talked about that recently during our meeting of being able to add in some aspects to really be able to pour into some of the agents that we have through like one-on-one coaching and things like that because we have a lot of great people right now who are wanting to grow, um,
Mhm.
and then being able to focus on obviously recruiting.
It's good. It's good. Good
Mhm.
feedback from me. So and again, she's given me feedback, but as a visionary, if you're listening to this, that applies to you as well. So take that coaching
Mhm.
and apply it, right? Good stuff. Let's man, we're getting close on time. Like I knew this was gonna happen. And there's so much more that we could talk about, which by the way, just so everybody knows, Amanda, this will not be the last time you see Amanda. Like I want to get Amanda back on here, as we're going to be doing a lot of growing together. We've been already growing over the years, but now we're at a position where I think the growth is a lot faster now, because we
Mhm.
have more context to make the pivot faster around certain situations. But I think Amanda brings a lot of value to this podcast, and I know a lot of you guys are probably going to get tired of hearing from me all the time. So we'll bring on Amanda a lot more. But I do want to, another question I have, and then we'll wrap it up. What would you say are some of the books and or podcasts or things that you have listened to, or maybe even conversations that you've had with people
Mhm.
that has really helped shape your mindset and help you be on the path to build the skills that you have today? Like, what are
Mhm.
some books you would recommend, podcasts, or maybe certain people that you've learned from that really kind of helped shape you to who you are today? What would you say?
Yeah. I would say we have a great thing. We do book of the month in our organization. So like all of those are just great staples. I love the book Relentless. That was one that I've reread so many times. Also EOS. If you're an operations person, you should read Traction and all of that stuff
Mhm.
to help run the organization. And then just a lot of the coaches and people that we look up to, a lot of them have podcasts and great resources as well, like John Cheplack, Matt Smith. I love learning from the people within his organization. as well as like our database follow-up boss Ethan Butte has like an awesome they go behind the scenes on like so many different teams and implementers and all of that stuff, so that's just great to just learn about different ways people do business because every single business is so different on how they do things. It's crazy. So just to learn about that stuff, get key takeaways from maybe different things that they've implemented or things that haven't worked for them, of just a whole bunch of different viewpoints, but just constantly being able to feed that to yourself helps you just really stay in that mindset of growth, I would say.
That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Good stuff. Well, Amanda, we'll put a bow on this one. I mean, is there anything that we missed? I mean, we could keep going, but I know like I mentioned, everyone we're shooting this podcast early in the morning, and we have a meeting filled day. I mean, it's gonna be a long
Yeah.
day today, right?
Hmm.
So we got to get our day started. But um, I think this is pretty solid. I
Yeah.
think this is pretty
Hmm.
solid. If somebody had questions about building an operations team or building a team, maybe a director of operations or a future one, and they want to get some feedback or learn from you, how could somebody
Hmm.
reach out to you and be able to learn from you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on Facebook. Also just my email, Amanda at slreg.com. That as
Yeah.
well.
Yes, Amanda is accessible. Definitely, she has a heart of contribution. So if there are any questions you have, do not hesitate to reach out to Amanda. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a bow on this one, and I just want to encourage you guys, like whether this is YouTube or Spotify or the podcast app on your iPhone, please leave us a review. I don't care if it's a 1 star or a 5 star. Any review is good, is a good review to us. Matter of fact, we learn more on the 1 star. So let us know, if this is valuable. If it was, give us a thumbs up or leave us a review. And like I said, this won't be the last time you hear from Amanda. We're going to be going to Nashville in the next week, and we're going to Conversion Con, which is going to be fun. So we're going to be spending some time with some other high level people. And when we come back, we're going to be shooting a fun podcast, kind of breaking down our takeaways from that event. So that'll
Mhm.
probably be the next podcast, maybe 2 from now. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's it. Anthwon Thomas, thankful to be joined today with Amanda Dalessandro. Again, she's the head of operations here at Silverlane Real Estate Group. And I hope this was valuable. See you guys on the next one. Take care. Peace.